Hello, my name is Lucero Santos, and today I'm going to do my research over anxiety in college athletes. Anxiety in college athletes. You are about to perform a stunt, and you have practiced this stunt over and over again till you got it right, just perfect. There were no mistakes, and you're heading out to the stage, and out of nowhere, your hands are sweating, your heart drops, and you're just looking at every single human being that is sitting there watching just you about to perform something that you have perfected, and your mind just goes blank and you forget absolutely everything that you have prepared for, and you're just filled with this tingly sense that you just don't know what's going on. And that is just a start of a symptoms of anxiety. And then going into college, we are already thinking as students like of our schedules, how we're going to balance work, schoolwork, classes, and try to have a personal life outside of school and work. So we can only imagine what college athletes feel like, having to manage even more stuff, adding games, sports events, sponsorships, meetings, practices, multiple practices sometimes. They have morning and afternoon practices, which can give a lot of students anxiety and can later on, like if they're overthinking about it so much, can lead them to having anxiety attacks, panic attacks. There are different forms of anxiety, such as trait, social, and state. Some student athletes may not know that they are experiencing symptoms of anxiety, which can cause it to worsen over time. And I feel like we need to be more aware of this situation. Certain students have the proper resources to be able to get help, mental help, and better themselves or find better ways of coping. Why I think this is so important is some people don't take mental health seriously, such as like maybe older people, they say, oh, I've been through so much worse and I've just sucked it up, quote unquote. But research, so much research now shows that how anxiety can affect the way someone thinks about themselves and the way they think someone else thinks about them. And anxiety is one of the most commonly researched topics in sports psychology, not only because it affects an athlete's mental health, but due to its direct impact on performance in both training and competition. Many student athletes begin to overthink about their performance, comparing themselves to other athletes, whether it be their own personal teammates or someone from another team, And then athletes may struggle with negative self-talk, limiting beliefs, and perfectionistic expectations. Dealing with anxiety can lead to depression if not dealt with. We need to be more aware of how much of an impact this has on student athletes' mental health before it is too late. Some students lose motivation and can fall into substance abuse and try to cope with the anxiety that they are feeling. And this is obviously not the proper way to cope with that and can worsen the situation that they are already in. It's like digging the hole deeper, And then there are a few types of anxiety, like I had mentioned before previously just a bit ago, such as the state, trait, and social. The state and traits anxiety can be caused by tension, apprehension, and nervousness, and sometimes it can deal with the personality of one. And social anxiety is a fear of being rejected or how you may think others are viewing you in a social or sport event. Social anxiety is what is linked the most with college athletes, since it has the social or sport event, how you perform in front of them, in front of a crowd, knowing that there are 1,000 eyes watching them, seeing how they are performing, critiquing their every move. Anxiety can cause them to hold back on their performance, avoiding games, practices, or even often overtraining themselves to be perfect, you know, in the eyes of others. We hypothesize the harsher parenting styles will be associated with higher level of performance anxiety in collegiate student athletes than the authoritative parenting style. Sometimes athletes strive to be the best, which isn't always necessarily a bad thing, but sadly it comes down to the point where they are just trying to satisfy coaches, peers, or parents, and you know, they forget about themselves and making themselves proud in their work. Athletes have, like I mentioned, their parents, coaches, and peers, and people who sponsor them may be watching them, which can be a lot of stress and pressure on an athlete. In the article by Smith and Thorne, they mention parenting methods and how sometimes it can affect someone ends up suffering with anxiety. And not only parents, coaches, if athletes are always around them, you know, if they're constantly bringing them down, telling them that they can do better, you know, it might negatively impact their mentality and thinking, you know, am I even good enough for, like, I'm not doing good enough, you know. And then yeah, that's the last point. You know, they want to do perfect, do better, because they're under a lot of pressure. They end up comparing themselves to other athletes, bringing themselves down. And as I mentioned, am I doing enough, or I can be, or I will do better, you know, but in not a beneficial way. An athlete is already staying active and very busy, and exercising is a way to relieve stress. Going for a quick walk or run, doing a few jumping jacks, trying some yoga poses, dance with your child, play with your pet, or walk your dog. It is important to make sure athletes stay active or do a stress-free activity that benefits them mentally. And we already know athletes are staying active enough as it is, you know, doing their sports, playing games, like in their athletic department, or practicing, but that is what the stress is. So we went to try to find different methods of, you know, athletic ways, you know, stress-free, something that's not so competitive, to help relieve the stress and anxiety. And then some cases involve students not having the resources they need to overcome these obstacles with anxiety, which can lead to depression, as mentioned previously, alcohol and or drug abuse during athletic season or after. We need college students and college athletes to be aware of the symptoms of anxiety and on the ways to cope before it is too late. And sometimes when these athletes who are under a lot of stress sometimes can get in trouble with the law, you know, simply because they are dealing with their problems or anxiety and depression in a non-healthy, beneficial way to them and others. So in conclusion, I hope that we can all agree that anxiety is a big problem just in general, but also focusing more on college athletes and trying not to put so much pressure on them, and trying to get them the help they need and the resources, and to make sure they know that they should not be scared to ask for help, to ask for resources, you know, be able to go to their coaches, their teachers, you know, their teammates without being made fun of, and to get them the proper help they need before it is too late and they take it to another step in a negative way. And these are my references. Thank you.